First off, Joms.
There's a thickness to it.
It's girthy.
It
Cheers,
Cheers.
Joms. Yay, welcome to Me Time.
Me Time with Maggie Lawson.
That's the name of my show. I'm still trying to figure it out, Joms.
It's it. I'm happy to be part of the infant stages.
The figuring it out.
Yeah.
Okay.
Where are you comfortable with a big girthy mic?
I don't know. I feel like. There we go.
Yeah.
How's that?
I want to do a whole podcast about. I think it looks great.
Okay.
Are you comfortable? Does this seem weird?
Not
Does
at
it look
all.
like it's going up my nose?
No.
Oh, okay, it looks fine.
Yeah,
Yeah, I haven't done a lot in here, so I'm not really used to this studio yet.
I hear you.
The good news is I have 3 beverages.
You're good to go with
We're
the
drinking a little Chopin vodka at the moment because Joms loves. Also, I don't think I can call you Joms the whole podcast. I think will that get annoying to people?
I can't speak for
The crowds?
the
masses?
crowds.
Yeah. James?
Yeah, maybe mix it up.
Yeah, mix it up. Rodriguez. Throw
Sure.
a Roday in there. Throw everybody off. Can I ask what happened to your finger?
Judy happened to my finger.
Judy, what did she do?
She gets really excited and she bites, and she's only 1, so we're gonna have to work that out.
Judy is a dog, not a child, just so everyone knows. Yeah.
Judy is Maggie's mother, and when she sees me, she still gets very, very excited.
It's my mom's name.
And there have been periods in Maggie's life where that was a little uncomfortable, because she would get way more excited to see me than she would,
I love that the
Maggie's
mass.
squeeze du jour.
I love that you're talking to the masses out there. That wasn't for me.
Well, I'm talking to Devin,
Hi,
who
Devin.
represents the masses.
Yeah, Devin does represent the masses.
No, Judy is a 1-year-old Boston Terrier,
Yeah.
and she can jump very high, impressively so. And she goes after my hands. She just wants to. And there was a point where she latched on, and I was actually dangling from my finger, and I think that was the time that this happened.
Oh, that'll do that.
Yeah.
Even though she's so tiny.
She's tiny and she's precious, and it's hard to get mad at her for anything.
She has the cutest eyes I've ever seen.
But I guess what this is going to do is just keep getting higher
Oh, nice.
until I eventually clip it off.
It's like a little tattoo
Yeah.
or something. It's
It's
kind
like
of
a
a fashion
finger-
statement.
Fingernail tattoo.
Yeah, it looks great, Joms. How are you doing today?
Shit, it looks like a bicycle.
You have a bicycle tattoo on your nail? Thank you, Judy. Judy's a tattoo artist. I'm going to close this, actually, and I'm going to put this down because, same rules apply here as the psychologists are in. Anxiety-free zone, so anything you don't want to talk about or anything you don't want to share that we might cover or whatever, so everybody feels good. Well, let me start with this. I was thinking about you and me time, and obviously I know you fairly well. We spent some time together.
Yep.
I feel like you're very good at me time. I feel like you're good at knowing. So the way I kind of talk about me time is like, it's that thing you do, these things that we do that kind of like bring us back to ourselves. And it could be anything from like guilty pleasure to, super healthy versions of it to whatever. The weirder, the better, I always say. But it can be so small and it too so extravagant. Just whatever we do, which is an array of things that bring us back to ourselves, especially when we feel like we're like not feeling good or feeling super connected to who we are or whatever. So, and then I started thinking like I've known you at least, and maybe I'm wrong about this, but I feel like I've known you to be pretty good at it. Like pretty good at kind of knowing when you're like, I need a minute.
Yeah, I would say there's a difference between knowing that you need something and delivering it to yourself,
100%.
And I've always known that it's a huge part of the pie chart for me. And then depending on where I am in my life or who I'm spending my time with or how busy I am or all of those things that kind of come in and turn up the noise, that's unfortunately sort of what dictates how much of it I get.
Right.
And how much I remember to take care of myself. And I think the key or the needle that we're all trying to thread, especially as we get older, is to listen to that voice first and foremost, and take care of ourselves first,
Right.
So it's the whole oxygen plane stewardess thing.
Right.
You know, you got to put your mask on before you can help another kid or
Right.
or whoever's sitting next to you that would require help.
But we forget that, I feel like sometimes.
So
Yeah.
I feel like from the time I was very, very young, I've known that me time is a huge part of what makes me tick. It's just a huge part of my DNA, and it's not. I don't think rocket science. I was an only child, and for a good chunk of that time, I was also a latchkey kid, and I spent a lot of time alone, and a lot of time with myself and my own thoughts, and that became a very safe and happy space for me.
Yeah. Do you feel like, well, do you feel like as you've gotten older, like I've heard you talk a lot about, your even, as when you were younger and through these eras of your lifetime in your life, that's sort of when you discovered your love of like horror films and like but as you've gotten older, do you find, well, I'll actually link this to a bigger question that I kind of like to ask because I feel like there are things that kind of mark our lives or like happen in our lives. We have many of them, but that almost force us into a period of time where where you're forced to get to know yourself in a different way. Something happens to you. I call them moments of impact where, it could be unexpected or fairly unexpected that something happens to you that you are changed after that moment. Like life is not the same as it was before. And, a lot of times I hear people say positive, like it can be obviously a birth of a child or something like that. But most of the time, I think for people thrown into that kind of time in their lives where they have to really get to know themselves. And it's not usually the most pleasant thing. It's usually like a job loss, a breakup. For me, I talk about when Peanut passed. And so I wonder for you, what would be like a moment of impact that made you get to know yourself in kind of a different way, or that you were changed by? Yeah. Changed from. By?
Changed by.
From?
Changed through.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, as you know, I used to like to dress up my penis as different famous guitarists from the 70s.
God, I was really hoping. I didn't know if you would go there, but I was really hoping that
And
that was what you were going to.
Like, they were like little sock puppets.
Yeah.
But-
you love the disco one.
But always very distinguishable.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
like no one ever had a problem guessing
No.
who I was featuring.
Right.
And when George Harrison passed,
Oh, shit.
there was two things that happened. One,
Okay.
it was such a bummer because we had already lost, John so early.
Yeah.
And
we're not recovered.
and what I realized is like, no matter how much this is resonating with me or at the time you, I don't ever want this to be mistaken for mockery of any kind. It doesn't matter how much nuance or detail I put in the little eyes or the hair or how much craft stuff I got from Michael's. I don't want anyone to think that I'm making fun of these artists because of the part of my body that I'm using.
No, of course not.
So twofold. When I said twofold, it's this. One, it was the end of an era because I stopped dressing up my member as musicians.
Wait, is this because George Harrison passed?
Yes.
Oh, I see.
And then two, and this is probably arguably more pertinent to your question. I realized that I was going to have to fill that void in a different way.
Got it.
And so after a brief and unsuccessful dalliance with gangster rappers,
Oh, yeah.
I ultimately got off of penis puppetry altogether and discovered the wide world of fantasy sports.
Oh, it was the penis puppetry that made you discover fantasy sports?
Well, it was the death of penis puppetry.
Okay, got it.
And by the way, it's important that we say it that way, penis puppetry, because puppetry of the penis is something very different.
Correct.
Which I was not blessed. With the skills for.
Oh, okay.
I can't do the wristwatch. I can't do the hamburger. There's
Oh, okay.
and
But
those
you've
are,
tried.
and I, of course, because those are the two most basic ones.
Right.
And those are the entry level ones. And it's like, if you can't do that, stop now.
100%.
So that was
Wow. How did you know? You knew.
my experience.
You're like, I'm only going to get so far with
Did
this.
I know? I think any man who's being honest with himself probably knows if he's got the wristwatch in him. But he still has to, you still have to do it. You still have to, some things you just have to learn for yourself.
Yeah.
You know this.
Yeah.
No, you know what? I
first
think
moment of impact.
because that was a very slight detour. I think for me, a true moment of impact was probably leaving New York City as a 22-year-old and landing in Los Angeles as a 22-year-old and thinking that life was going to look one way and then almost overnight having to pivot to life looking a very different way. Now, both of these ways are still like 1%er dreams, right? I thought that I was going to be a New York actor making theater and grinding and, having a bar job that still allowed me to go to rehearsals and suffering for my art and finding a tribe and being a part of a movement and all of the things that theater school kind of builds you up for.
Right.
And ultimately, in a very short period of time, I found myself very, very lucky, transplanted to the other side of the country, making more money than I thought I ever would make.
Yeah.
And doing work that, frankly, I was making fun of and looking down on because it wasn't serious enough. And so, as a young 22-year-old self-righteous, idealistic artist, that can really scramble you up.
Did you feel like guilty? Did you feel like you weren't
I felt guilty.
Yeah.
I felt like not authentic. I felt
Like you
like
were
I was selling out to everything that all the flags that I had carried. I felt like other people were saying that about me. When I left rooms,
Right.
that knew me when. And what you realize is that at the end of the day, like anyone would have jumped at that opportunity.
Of course.
Because that's your way in. And once you're in, you can actually start figuring out who you are, what matters to you, what doesn't, what hills you're willing to die on, and all of that stuff. But it doesn't matter if you are never actually given the opportunity, right? So you have to go in because that's where the opportunities are. You have to be in the room where it happens.
Yep.
But at 22, it takes a while to figure all of that out. So I found myself living in West Hollywood with my best friend, luckily, from high school, who had been on every step of this journey with me. And everyone else at that time, you have to remember this was in the early 60s. Everyone else at that time...
Wait, what did you just say?
I often feel like I'm that old. It wasn't the early 60s.
I'm literally like, wait, are we back to penis puppetry? You
No,
said
no, no.
70s. Oh, okay. Got it.
No, this was
You feel so old.
this was at the turn of the century.
Century.
Yeah, turn of the century. Everyone else that was sort of doing what I was doing in the same stage of their careers didn't seem to be taking it seriously enough for my liking.
Oh, interesting. In
And-
LA.
Yeah, and the LA culture seemed to be sucking people in and sucking them dry and spitting them out in a way that I also didn't care for. So I found myself retreating. I did a lot of retreating to my own thoughts, my own idea of what kind of path I should be on. And like if everyone I knew was going to some party at some ridiculous bar, I was staying in and either reading a book about screenwriting or doing some absolutely, I'm sure at the time, terrible writing of my own. Like I
You're
decided
still hustling.
I was going to live the culture that I was surrounded by. And during that period, I started a fantasy football, fantasy basketball, and fantasy baseball league with like 11 other people.
Okay, let's stop right there.
Yeah.
What is a fantasy football, basketball? Just give me one. So what does it mean?
It's basically a bunch of sports nerds
Okay.
who are drafting teams of real players,
Yes.
and then the league plays out based on the statistics that
In real time.
that those players are actually achieving.
Okay, got it.
They're doing all the work.
Okay.
We're sitting with our remote controls or looking at our laptops or refreshing our screens and singing their praises when they do well and cursing their names when they have bad games.
But you were a sports fan though already. So like this was like
It was a natural progression
Right,
for
okay.
for a sports fan like myself.
Right.
So I put together these three teams, these three leagues rather, one for each sport. Little did I know at the time that 24 years later, these three leagues would all still exist with very little turnover as to who's in them.
Really?
So those were my humble beginnings. It was ESPN, which was one of the few platforms that offered fantasy sports online.
Okay.
That early on.
Do you pay to like
We do play for money. It's not big money.
Okay.
It's more like fun kind of bragging rights
Okay.
money.
Okay.
And again, this is all within the context of me not having a ton of fun when I moved to Los Angeles and instead having a lot of time with myself when I wasn't in a trailer or on a set.
Right.
So I became, and good is a weird word to apply to being a fantasy sports manager because again, you're not actually doing anything. You're not doing any of the playmaking.
But you're like wait, can you like trade?
You can make trades.
Okay.
You can waive people. You can pick people up. It's more like being a GM of a sports team.
Okay.
That's what
Okay.
it really is. I was giving it a lot of time and a lot of focus, and as a result, won almost all those leagues almost exclusively for the first couple of years. I became a guru in my own mind. I was beating the hell out of my poor friends.
I feel like I got to witness an early experience so go on because this got into a bigger thing
It did,
for you.
and through no fault of theirs, because they probably had much fuller, richer lives and real responsibilities where they couldn't give nearly as much time to it as I was. But I created these leagues, and then I started winning the shit out of these leagues, and then became convinced that because I was doing that, and because I was doing it so, like I was hammering these people. You know what I mean?
It was hammering.
Yeah, it
It
was.
was a bloodbath.
Perhaps I was one of the best fantasy managers in the world. Like maybe I was that good.
Yeah.
So the next logical step for me, and this was something that you remember because you were privy to it.
Yeah.
It happened when we were in Vancouver
Yeah.
in the early years.
I went
the early
one
years
year.
of psych.
Yeah.
I discovered high stakes fantasy.
Yeah.
And I decided I needed to test my skills against the best of the best, which is not unlike a guy or a gal or someone who doesn't define themselves by gender pronouns,
Right.
who wins all the time in their like home poker game,
Right.
who's just constantly cleaning up,
Yeah. They're like,
deciding, you know what, I'm going to enter the World Series of Poker because I think I might be that good. And it was in Las Vegas. They did their live drafts in Las Vegas. They still do. And I would fly from Vancouver because it was during our seasons, and I'll never forget that. The first one was baseball, and I arrived, and I was sitting at a table in a ballroom in Vegas, surrounded by sharks. You know, they had all of their materials. Well, I had like a magazine and confidence. A lot of them were wearing jerseys for their favorite sports teams. No one was particularly interested in my whimsy or my
You shut up with all your jokes.
or my irreverence.
Yeah.
They were there because it was serious time.
Right.
And this is where the fantasy sports and the universe as a whole can be a cruel mistress. I had a remarkable rookie season. I finished in the top 10 of their overall tournament
In the country,
and
right?
I won a very like nice cash prize. So
Now.
I was now like the evidence is empirical. I no longer have to wonder if I'm one of the best. I am one of the best.
Yeah.
You became a person that, in addition to your full, rich exterior and interior life, we're spending a great deal of time with someone who was one of the best fantasy players on planet Earth.
Yes. I mean, and to say a mistress, there were times where I was like, man, it's me or fantasy sports.
That's right. That's right.
But so wait, I went early days though.
You did.
Was that football?
I think you came to a football
Yeah,
one.
yeah,
I
yeah.
remember you called out all my picks.
Oh yeah, that's right. It was good. And I was the same. I was sort of like, oh, we're gonna go into this room and it's gonna be, I thought, at like a small table with some people, and like, I mean, there were so many people in this room.
It's a multi-billion-dollar industry now.
It's insane.
It's right there. It's right below poker. I mean, it's that huge.
Yeah.
There are people that just do this for a living. They don't supplement. It's not a supplemental thing. It's just like, this is what they do year round.
This is going to start being one of those one of those like TikTok things that starts like circulating and goes viral, where people are like, you can quit your jobs and just do fantasy sports.
Just do fantasy
listen
sports.
to Rodriguez speak. Go ahead.
Yeah. So basically, reality set in soon after, and I did not have anything close to the same success in high stakes football or high stakes baseball. For many years, there was a very long, cold, dry spell, during which I realized there was simply no way that I was going to be able to keep up with these sharks and whales who, did this and this alone.
Right.
But because it was like such a gift for me and such a happy place for me, and like I didn't really have any other vices to speak of, this was my thing. This was the thing that allowed me to turn down the noise, to shut off my brain. I could take 20 minutes, which, as you remember, which is, about all I had.
Ever. It's so funny. I made that comment at the beginning, like, you're good at me time. I think you just are good at knowing yourself, but I think you're also right. Like, you were so busy that even having 10 minutes to breathe, you didn't have that.
I didn't have that. I didn't have time for any awesome, dope hobbies.
No, yeah.
I was wearing multiple hats on a show that I cared so much about, and that I was so lucky to be a part of. That's what made sense for me to be giving 99% of my time to.
Right. And
so I would take this 20 minutes, whether it was at night or during lunch or whenever I could find it, and I'm very thankful. Like I had, regardless of what season it was, basketball, football, or baseball, I had multiple teams that always needed my attention and that didn't require me to speak to someone or answer any questions. All I needed was my eyes and my brain and my laptop. And it was like looking at a lot of numbers, frankly.
Yeah.
Like if you don't know anything about sports or stats or anything, to look at like one of these websites, you're just going to see names with a bunch of numbers next to them. It's almost like looking at code or something.
Right.
But for me, it was like,
Peace.
being on a beach and with a book,
Right.
and just sighing and for that 20 minutes or however long it was, knowing that nothing else was going to crawl into the dome and mix me up or throw me off. And that became my special place. And 15 years later, it absolutely still is. Now, I'm not nearly as fiercely competitive at the highest levels anymore.
Do you still go to Vegas?
I do, but it's more of like, it's just good times.
Yeah.
I'm a part of this community. I know the other player. I know the guys who started the NFFC and the NFBC are really good dudes. And
bunch of letters don't.
Yeah. And now we do some stuff together that's for charity, and it's kind of evolved into something else for me. But it is still very much my special, sweet brain place that allows me to sort of turn everything else off. And because even like, if I do something that inspires me, whether it's if it's a film or reading a book or listening to a song, like if it's something artistic that I appreciate, that moves me in some way or inspires me, that's still taking up emotional real estate and gearing me up in a way that is not, it's still the exact opposite of what I know I need sometimes, which is all of that has to go away. All of that has to turn off. So, if I make time to watch some movie that I've heard great things about and it ends up delivering and I absolutely love it, like that's great, but that just makes me want to go write that second.
Right.
Or a great song
create something.
Makes me want to go create, makes me want to listen to every other song that artist did. Like it's just, I get inspired and then that's all I can think about.
Right.
And so it can't be that.
Yeah.
Like I can't go lose myself in something that I love or something that I do. And sports, luckily, while I get so much joy out of it, and while I can watch football all day on Sunday if I have nothing else to do, I can also leave it on the field.
Right.
It's like it's something that I can digest, appreciate, and let go of.
Right.
And I think that's part of like what the bedrock for me time is.
It is. It fills the tank.
It has to do it in a way that doesn't require any additional emotional real estate.
Right.
Or that's going to cause anxiety, or it's going to cause you to go down holes that you're trying to avoid in the first place.
This is why this is so great, because this is exactly what me time is. It should not be anything that stirs you into anything else. It has to be something that refuels you in a way that's just for you. And also, as you said, you can leave it, but you're also refueled from, in a way you just feel like, okay, I needed that minute to like come back to myself so that I can go wear all the hats and do all the things and whatever, because otherwise we get on empty and then we turn into something or someone we don't like.
And if I'm being completely honest with you, because I've known you for so long and this is me time and it's the best podcast going right now. I would have to say that is not actually something that I ever got out of my dick sock puppets.
Yeah.
Because I think I was way too invested in what other people thought of them. Giving them the three guesses.
Way too much thinking.
Wanting people to get it right.
And deliver for other people. You can't be, it can't be about other people, John.
So I wasn't, when I thought that was my thing, it actually wasn't even my thing.
Yeah.
Wow.
I feel like I kind of knew this about you, but
you were always very cool in that way. It's like you knew I was on my own journey and
I didn't want to interrupt.
Yeah.
I didn't even want to give my 2 cents about like, what characters I wanted to see or, people.
It's true.
Yeah. I love that we brought it back to the puppets. I feel like I want to do like a how-to on fantasy sports with you, but I also don't know that that's what this me time is going to be about. But I also,
there's so much content out there that can be consumed for anyone who's even remotely curious.
Can I just ask a couple like dumb fantasy sports for dummies questions?
Sure.
What's a spread? If somebody's like, I covered the spread for the weekend.
Okay, so spread is more of a betting term than a fantasy term.
Parlay?
A parlay is also a betting term.
Give me some fantasy sports. Like, I know a thing or two about fantasy sports terms.
Flex is a fantasy sports term.
Like weird flex?
Is a fantasy sports term.
Super flex.
Because in terms of your roster construction, a flex spot is not specific to a certain position. A flex can be a running back, a wide receiver, a tight end. A super flex can even be a quarterback.
Whoa.
And all the rage
Flex.
Sort of the direction that fantasy has moved in, I would say, like the last 6 to 8 years, are these damn super flex leagues where you have to roster 2 quarterbacks. And so it kind of changes everything because, as we know, there are not 2 quarterbacks playing for the same team at the same time in real football.
I mean, there's 1 and 2 usually.
Against each other, yes.
Right,
but they're not playing at the same time.
Right.
And it sort of changes the way you approach a draft and the way you build your roster and the way you strategize and all that stuff. And it's fun to mix things up, to keep people on their toes and, have different formats and stuff. But it's certainly gotten further away from like that, hey, this is what it feels like if you were a real GM,
Got it. So flex is flexible?
Flex means flexible.
Got it.
Yeah.
Well, that's another question for another day.
A spread is simply what odds makers have decided is going to be the difference between the score of 2 teams.
Okay.
So
got it.
Say the Titans are playing the Cowboys.
Mm-hmm.
And the Titans are at home and they're getting, a basic what they give home teams, 3 points. The Titans -3 means that if you want to bet on the Titans against the Cowboys, the Titans need to win by more than 3 points.
Okay.
That's the spread.
Okay. I can get down with that. A little horse racing. I get a little bit of that. Yeah.
A parlay is basically putting a bunch of bets together to improve the odds and make it worth a lot more money. So instead of needing one thing to happen, you need 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 things to happen. But if they all do, the payoff is exponentially
glorious. Got it. All right. Switch gears for a second.
Of course.
Because I feel like we kind of share a me time, although my me time around this is a little soon. I will have a new pup in my life, but pets have always been, I think, a thing that we are both, like, for me anyway, like 5 minutes with Peanut, 5 minutes, just 5 minutes with Fun. They always bring us back to ourselves. Actually, let's start with this.
Yep.
This will be fun. Rodriguez, is that the sort of, look, I feel like you understand exactly what me time is. I feel like we covered exactly.
I know what it is for me. I'm
what it is for you.
It's different for everyone.
I feel like you, though, I think you nailed it. Exactly what that, it is different for everybody, but the feeling of what me time should be is what you nailed, which I'm still learning this in myself in a lot of ways.
It's what people, I think, achieve when they meditate. It's whatever that feeling is that allows you to kind of like shut off the world and float and find your center.
I honestly think that I was able to, I think, like, because of our time together, like, find that more in myself, because I feel like you were okay. You were always okay with, and we can share this or not or whatever, but you were so, I feel like, comfortable with me exploring whatever I needed to, whether it was like the times I would fly to LA, the friends that I had, the trips I would take, my alone time, which was something I hadn't really experienced in my life, like people being okay with or not threatened by, or
Eyes Wide Shut parties.
Yeah, which obviously now is every weekend for,
And also not nearly as provocative as they were back then.
No, definitely not. Well, things, never mind. But yes, the Eyes Wide Shut parties,
I wanted you to go to them.
I know. This is what I mean. You encouraged this. But I'm saying I really do believe that period in my life when I talk about, like, even why I do this podcast, because now, I will go eat alone. I travel alone. Like, it's become a thing in my life that I cherish, I protect, I love, I need. It's different. Some days it's 5 minutes of just watching dog rescue videos on the dodo and I feel good to go. Other times it's like I have to get out of LA for a couple of weeks and I can, go, like, whatever. But I've thought about it so many times that I feel like it was that during that time that I felt obviously lucky enough to have the means and time to go kind of explore and see things I liked and get to know myself in a way that I felt like, this is more just like a thank you, that I felt like you always encouraged, like you always saw the value in that. I think because at the time, especially, you had so little of it yourself, but also I think in your life you had learned, like, whether you're, Vegas or, because I know you still left, I was thinking that I also thought that might be something you would bring up as one of your sort of me times when because me time can be with people.
It can be with people. I think my affinity for Vegas really started to fade. Um, just because you get older, those casinos are filled with cigarette smoke.
Yes.
You can't stay out as late. You can't drink as much. You wake up feeling shittier, and like things that you weren't even considering when you were much younger suddenly become like detrimental to having a good time.
Yeah.
And so I think, Todd and I both, we kind of woke up when we were, in our early 40s, and we're like, dude, I think we're done with Vegas. Are we done? And we kind of were. We were right on the cusp of like, you know what? We're going to find a new spot, and we're going to start workshopping new spots, and then we'll find one that we like the way we used to like Vegas. And it'll look different. It'll feel different because we're different. We're older, and that'll be our new thing. But then we discovered the Park MGM, which is a smoke-free casino.
Oh, and you were back in.
The only one in Vegas.
Really? I didn't even know that. That's wonderful. I haven't been in
the
so
Sahara,
long.
and it was purchased by the MGM, and they made it the first smoke-free casino in Las
I had
Vegas.
no idea.
And I can't tell you what a huge difference it makes.
Oh, that's so fantastic. And you love the MGM.
And it's not an indictment against people who smoke cigarettes, except it absolutely is 100%.
Yeah.
That's all it is. That's all it is. That they had soured my experiences to the point
And that was
that I was ready to walk away.
Yeah.
And now I can go back again.
I love that. Well, I think that's what I mean. You even knew like that would be restorative in some way for you to feel like yourself. Like I learned a lot just from watching that. I mean, before then, I don't think I'd ever like definitely not gone on a trip like by myself, but like just with my girlfriends to like go have a good time and be girls for a week.
That stuff's so imperative.
So imperative. It changed my life. Like, but I just hadn't experienced that anyway. So thank you. And okay, let's do 3 things. I want to know 3 things you absolutely cannot live without right now. It can change, but right now.
Right. I mean, this is a transient question because we go through phases and stages and stuff. So I would say Barry's boot camp is going to make the list.
Oh, nice.
Because without it, I don't think I would exercise. And if I didn't exercise, I would turn into the penguin.
Wait, what is it about berries? Because I haven't been, but everybody feels this way about it.
It forces you to work beyond where you feel comfortable.
Okay.
Which is not something that I can do when I'm working out by myself.
Right.
I just can't get myself to the same place.
Right.
I know I'm not getting as much out of it as I could.
Right.
Stick me in a room with some other people and someone with a mic. And for whatever reason, it triggers my brain in a different way, and I end up coming within inches of my life every class.
Awesome.
If you don't know what Barry's is, it's a split. It's basically like it's half cardio, high impact treadmill based cardio.
Okay.
And half weight training.
Okay.
And you're just switching back and forth between the two, and it's brutal.
Okay.
So that's my lifeline to like health and good heart health, mostly.
Yeah, smart.
So I gotta have that. These aren't in any particular order, but the dogs are obviously going to be on that list always.
We're gonna get to them in a second.
They're like a staple, just because I don't know, the smile on a dog is like a spiritual experience.
Yeah.
They can erase years of pain and trauma and suffering in a way that drugs and therapy and you name it.
Yeah.
I personally have I've never experienced anything quite like coming home after a day that sucked and that you just couldn't wait to be over, and then looking into the eyes of 1 or 2 or 3 or more pets that are just so delighted that you're back,
Yeah.
and that I've been waiting for you to get back from the moment that you left.
Yeah. Unconditional love.
And just want to be as close to you as humanly possible. There's just nothing quite like it.
For people who maybe don't know, and I think most people who listen to this pod know, what kind of dogs do you have in their names?
Currently, my incomparable partner and I share her 17-year-old toy poodle, Theo,
Yeah.
who is
Love Theo.
a sagely gentleman in his twilight years who makes his needs very, very clear, but also spends a good portion of the day in a deep state of rest. Our pandemic rescue was a dog de Bordeaux, also known as a French Mastiff, named Claude.
Mm-hmm.
He is now 5, and
love Claude.
you and I shared a French Mastiff named Franck.
Yeah.
And the other thing I love so much about dogs is like they're same breed.
Yeah.
Could not be more different.
They're always.
They have their own souls. They have their own quirks. They have their own personalities.
Yeah.
Franck was sort of like the Edgar Allan Poe meets Rain Man of Mastiffs.
Such a good
way
to put it.
He was hypersensitive.
Yeah.
Very aware of his own mortal coil.
Yeah.
Didn't like most things that other dogs liked.
No.
Didn't
like a ton of other dogs. But when he liked another dog, he loved that dog. It was his.
It was a huge breakthrough moment.
Yes.
For people too, frankly.
And people, oh my God, people. He was very selective about people.
Claude is on the other side of that spectrum.
Yeah.
He's just a big bundle of joy. Everybody gets a shot for the most part. Just a big, big sweetheart. And he has recently welcomed into the home our double strike rescue.
Double strike rescue, right?
Judy, the Boston Terrier, who's 1 year old.
So sweet.
And we weren't sure. We weren't sure if Claude was going to be like, forget this. I'm not giving up my place in the hierarchy. This dog has way too much energy. She's disrupting my flow. And for like the first week, it was a little touch and go. But he came around. He recognized, I think, how important it was to us that this all work out. And he has become a really good big brother.
Oh.
He's incredibly patient with her.
She's
kind of something of a Tasmanian devil, and he gets punched in the face and headbutted and knocked in the wiener, and he just kind of takes it all and recognizes like, oh, this is her thing. She's doing that thing where she loses her shit, and then they cuddle together and sleep together and nap together, and it's very, very sweet.
It's really sweet.
So yeah, that's our.
I finally got Judy kisses. We had a very fun game night to celebrate your partner's birthday a couple of weeks ago, where we were all running around like crazy people doing running charades, which was so much fun. I'm so in on that game. But I had met Judy once before, and I could tell it was like early days. And then finally at the end of the night, I like put my nose down, and she came up and gave me like a little kiss. She's so sweet.
She's a sweetie.
Okay, third thing.
Dogs, a workout class, and I'm not just saying this because we're drinking it, but not unlike during the pandemic when there's like a huge paradigm shift in our conditioning or what we're used to. It's really nice to have vodka as like an old standby. You know? It's like slipping into a pair of like Calvin Klein boxer briefs that you've had since you were maybe in your early 30s. The little part where your bunghole goes is worn out to the point that, blowing on it could create a hole. And
I feel like a lot of men are going to be like, I know exactly
what that feels like because I shouldn't still have them. I should have thrown them away long ago. but they still feel the best.
Yeah.
They feel the best under
Yeah.
my clothes.
Yeah.
And that to me is the role that vodka plays.
I love that.
And at this very precise moment in time, I'm also very happy to have football back, even though it's a barbaric sport where men are destroying their brain functions. And I don't know how much longer football will be around.
Right.
But it's in my blood, and I do get
Giddy.
this time of year.
I love that. It's like your Christmas.
Yeah.
I love that. Okay.
I'm also very grateful to women who play tennis professionally.
Yeah. How about the U.S. Open this year?
Awesome.
Go. I was like, there were a couple times too where I think I did text. Oh, I texted you about Djokovic, but I was like, this is exciting.
Yeah.
This is good. And women's tennis in general is just, anyway.
Way up there for me, right? It's like football and women's tennis.
You went to the U.S. Open.
I did.
Yeah.
I did. And the first couple days are my favorite time to go because everybody in the draw is going to be out there on court. You can pretty much see anyone that you want to see.
Yeah.
Some of those outside courts are great because they're small and intimate, and you can be 10 feet away from someone that you've only watched play on TV, and seeing that happen live and watching the way that they strat. And that's the other reason I love the women's game so much, is because they, for the most part, they can't just go out there and like blast each other to hell.
Right.
You know?
Right.
It's still a game.
Right.
You have to think 1 or 2 points ahead, and it requires, strategy and nuance and versatility, and I just love it. I love it.
Love that. Okay. Couple of tougher questions.
I want them.
Yeah.
I welcome them.
Well, I did this Ask Me Anything last week, and I got a lot of questions, and I actually had to like break it up into some categories, and one of them came up, and I don't know. I'd be curious because I feel like at least after some time, and we can see where this goes, but we co-parented a dog pretty well after a breakup, I feel like, after some time.
Sure.
But one of the questions I had was about, actually I had two, about one was like how do you maturely stay friends with an ex? And the other one was, how do you, co-parenting a dog? Like there's a lot of stuff about custody and kids and all of that, but like sharing a dog, I think a lot of times people think is like well, surely one person's going to take the dog and the other person's going to, and obviously you have that sort of general, like, this is your dog and this is my dog feeling. But in certain cases, like at least with us and like Franck, and I still have like stuff around Tristan that I kind of feel like I wish you all would have had a little more time in the end, especially. And she was very, that was like a weird time. But I didn't know if like you felt comfortable or if there was any sort of thing to offer around what kind of like worked around that for us, and how eventually, I mean, we got to a place where we're so close anyway, but like, I felt like you and Franck had, like, it was just clear. Like,
sure.
you all
are,
yeah.
My spirit animal, yeah.
Yeah,
and
your
same
spirit
with you, same with you, Tristan.
And T, yeah. But like, when you left town or if there was an emergency or anything like that, like that just got organized in like a way that just in the end really worked. And I
would imagine people that do this with kids can speak very intelligently about it, because it's the principles are obviously similar.
Right.
But to call back to what we said earlier about dogs, like I do think, and I'm speaking unintelligently because I don't have a child and I have no idea what it's like to share a child with someone. But I think oftentimes, especially fresh after a breakup, there's so much resentment and denial and anger and grief, and you got not one person but two people trying to work through all of that using their own coping mechanisms. It's like it's so hard to get through all of that, to do anything that's even like remotely functional.
Yeah.
But for some reason, and I would assume children probably have a similar effect, but again, it's important to note that I don't know what I'm talking about. When it comes to pets, even if it was the worst, ugliest, shittiest breakup imaginable, like you still know the power and the magic that goes into what a pet can do for another human being.
The love.
And you know that pet had a special, unique relationship with the person that you broke up with, just like they have with you. And so there's something about depriving another human being of that the level of disdain and hate that would be required
Right.
to be like, no, I will not work with you
Yeah.
on a time that you can hang out with the dog for a couple days is so beyond what I can imagine that I think it was just sort of like one of those unspoken things of like,
Yeah.
look, we have stuff to resolve. It's not
Yeah.
going to get resolved anytime soon.
Right.
Hopefully down the road when cooler heads prevail, we'll be able to like have perspective and start and show some real accountability and like heal and all of those things.
Yeah.
But that's down the road.
That's there. Right.
In the meantime, of course you can see the dog for a couple of days.
Yeah.
That's something I can do. I know I can do that. And I know you can do that.
It's so funny because I was like thinking about answering it, and then I knew you were going to come on the pod, so I was like, oh, maybe this would be an interesting thing to ask James too, because I think what I would have said too is just to elaborate on what you said, that because their love is so pure, our love for them is so pure, and there's something about like the representation of, even in the midst of all of the other shit, there's like this reminder of the love that like also the animals can seem to kind of cut through all that. Yeah.
I remember one time you texted me, and this was during a time that we were not getting on particularly well. And we're just like, I need Frank for a couple of days.
Yeah.
No idea what was going on. I knew it probably wasn't great.
Yeah.
But for you to actually text that, all I knew was, oh shit.
Yeah.
She needs Frank for a couple of days.
and then you were like, okay.
Yeah, I mean, you have to. It's like, you have to, because there's so few things in this life.
But I also, that speaks to you too. I mean, I think that speaks to like, it obviously there can be situations if it's dangerous and there's a thing, and like, obviously, but like for the most part, so thank you. Yeah. I would have said, I was so curious your take, because mine was so similar, but also just about love of animals, and also what you just said was like at the end of everything.
Yeah, and as I'm sure you recall, like we had come up with a system where we didn't even have to see one another.
I know.
We had a go-between who was in charge of the back and forth. So it really was like, I think in its truest form.
Yeah.
Like, this is about the dog
and
doing the right thing.
Yeah.
There was no weird side agendas.
No.
Like, it wasn't like the dog, I'll use the dog
to try to see you or do this or get in on your life, or like,
another human being is going to cart the dog.
It's so funny. I've recently, I had this come up. So a friend of mine recently had asked me about something kind of similar. And I was like, because they were in that sort of like fresh, very tough place. And also their new person was kind of not cool with the exchanges of whatever. And my thing was like, all right, if it's really about that, and the dog is front and center is the most important thing, and we're doing what's best for the dog. Like, and I knew them. I was like, you have the money. Like, there are people who will come, like, at least, as you said, until cooler heads prevail and people can get through and cut through all the stuff. The new person, I don't really know, but if it really is just about, like, the getting together and the picking it up, and everybody wants to be happy right now for a short time, there are people that are very safe drivers that will come get your dog and go, a dog walker or whatever, just pay for the time. I don't know what ended up happening with them, but it made me think about that time. I was like, wow. Right. It's so different now when I think about it. It was so long ago, but like also, anyway, it was interesting. I feel like how, looking back on it now, that it was so purely about Frank.
And you never want to. It's the same with a kid. You don't ever want to punish a child or a pet,
right,
for like the fact that we are, broken animals and can't get our shit together.
Right.
Like, those two things need to be mutually exclusive. I mean, you can't sit down a dog and explain to them, oh, mom and dad literally can't stomach
See each other?
seeing each other's fucking faces right now. So we're not going to all chill here anymore.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because they just know that all of a sudden the other
It's not
most
there.
pivotal their person,
I'm
like
gonna
the other half of their heart, is just gone.
Yeah.
And you know, to see them like sitting by a door wondering when that person is going to come home is not something that my heart can handle.
I like literally still can't talk about it, honestly. So yeah, we can probably leave it there. But
there is a way to do it, and it's civil, and it doesn't have to, like you said, it doesn't have to complicate the situation any more than it already is.
Right. All right. Good. Well, that was a good answer, Joms. And I feel the same way. Now I'm in tears.
It's just important, and I would encourage anyone who's listening to find that space and carve it out for yourself, because it's just so important now, you know, maybe more than ever, because there is so much noise out there, and it doesn't matter who you are or what you believe, you know, ideologically, what side of the lines you're on, blue, red, it doesn't matter. Too much is too much.
Right.
And we all have thresholds, we all have breaking points, and we just can't let ourselves get there, because that's when bad things happen.
That is that's so perfectly put. It doesn't matter sides. It doesn't matter any of that. It's like, and then I often hear people say things like, you know, I used to hear this a lot, and now I kind of get it. Like, you kind of have to heal yourself first before you can do what you need to do in the world, be who you in a relationship, be in a thing, or heal any, like, you know, heal first. What do they say? Heal yourself first before you can heal the world. Yeah. It's like this, exactly how you started this, which was, as you brilliantly said, putting on your, there's a reason it is put your oxygen mask on first before helping others. And I love this topic because I'm still getting to know it myself and exploring it. And I love talking to people about it. As you know, I love it on all levels. And I love that you talked about fantasy sports, because that's the thing. It doesn't have to be this extravagant, like, me time doesn't have to be, you know, a big spa day or expensive or any of that. It can literally be 5 minutes of your day.
It doesn't have to be masturbation either.
It can be, though.
It 100% can be.
And it probably is for a lot of people.
And sometimes it should be.
Yeah, sometimes it really should.
It doesn't have to be.
But it doesn't have to be.
Because sometimes, and I'm only speaking for myself, of course, I need more than 31 seconds of me time. It's just not going to get it done.
Sometimes.
31 seconds ain't going to get it done.
No. Sometimes you need more time.
Yeah.
For me time.
That's right.
Or
that's when you can mix and match.
That time.
You know?
Yeah.
You can do 30 seconds of one activity and then 19 minutes of another. And when you do the
and
addition,
then we've all learned a lot about
you do the calculus, it's all me time.
It is all me time in multiple categories.
That's right.
Okay, good. Everyone, I hope you took something away from this. I did. I definitely took a lot away from this. I will be thinking of Pink Floyd now.
I did Jimi Hendrix.
And, yes. Give me one more.
Did I do a Joni Mitchell puppet?
No, I think you did.
I think I
Maybe
did too.
a Joni Mitchell puppet, yeah.
I think
good.
I did too.
That's a good one. Yeah. That's a good one. All right, everyone. Thank you for listening. Joms, thank you for your time and insight and sharing. I feel like I could talk to you about this topic as you were talking about, like, even just growing up and being an only child and all of that. Like, I feel like there's a whole other. So you'll be back.
And I thank you, as always, for being so kind and understanding to dipshits like me.
You're not a dipshit. You're never a dipshit. You're the opposite of a dipshit. And I'm so grateful for you. And I'm eternally grateful for our friendship and happy I know you. And this was wonderful for everybody. Do you need more vodka? Are you good?
I'm good. You good?
Good. I'm great. All right. Thank you, everybody.
Bye, everyone.